I have a question for you. When I say the words universal basic income, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you? It'll probably be one of two different things. The first thing might be no effing way. The other thing would probably be something like, there's no damn way I want to go to work every day and slave away at my job to pay taxes so somebody can sit at home and get paid to do absolutely nothing. And I agree with you. I agree with you 100% on that. But what if that program actually saved Canadian taxpayers money? Would you have an open mind to that? For instance, if you were to implement universal basic income and not allow people to sit at home and do nothing and collect money, and it actually cut down on the cost of other social programs, say welfare, would you be in favor of that? I want to take you back almost 20 years. I want to take you back to Senator Hugh Segal. Now, Hugh Segal was a politician. He was a senator. And here he is right here. He passed away in 2023. He was a Canadian political strategist, author, commentator, academic, and senator. He served as Chief of Staff to Ontario Premier Bill Davis and later to Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. This man was a Conservative. And I had a chance to talk to him on my program, John Bolton's Cornwall Today, going back, I would say probably 20 years. And I had the same problem with this as you're having right now. And listen to what Hugh Segal had to say. If you go through the whole thing, I hope you'll do that. Tell me what you think of Hugh Segal and his argument for, at the time, what he called universal basic income, which is now called guaranteed livable basic income. And Senator Segal joins us on Cornwall Today. Good to have you here, sir.
Hi, John. Nice to be here.
Okay, maybe what I can do right off the top is say that you're a conservative. You're sort of a lone wolf when it comes to this type of an idea, I would think, for a guaranteed annual income. But can you explain in a nutshell what you're proposing here?
Yeah, well, it's actually nothing all that radical. We have a guaranteed annual income supplement now for seniors, where if you earn beneath a certain amount from all your various sources, if you're 65 or over and you fill out your tax form, you get automatically topped up. That started when Mr. Davis was the Premier of Ontario. That's when that program was brought in for people here in Ontario. And then it spread to the other provinces, and now it's a federal program as well. So that system doesn't involve any more bureaucrats. It doesn't involve any more welfare officers to interview people, which our present welfare system does require, which is quite expensive. It simply says if you're earning beneath what we know is necessary in Cornwall or Kingston to kind of deal with the basics, food, lodging, heat, etc., you'll get topped up so you do have enough. And that's basically what I'm suggesting as a better way than the amount we're now spending. We spend about $140 billion a year federally and provincially on transfers to people now, and that does not include any expenditures relating to health or education. So that's a very large amount of money. I think this new approach would be more efficient. It wouldn't require all the bureaucrats that we now have for Ontario Works and others. The rule book for an Ontario Works caseworker dealing with clients has 800 rules in it as we speak, John. That's pretty tough for even the best public servant to administer, and a lot of those rules discourage work. As you know, if you're a welfare recipient, and the vast majority of people living beneath the poverty line are single moms, if they find a job and earn more than welfare allows, of course, they lose all their benefits. So the net result is to almost claw back 100% of that which they're trying to earn, which makes no sense at all. It kind of goes against my conservative principles, which is people should be encouraged to work.
Well, let me just jump in right now and ask you this. If people aren't working at all, would you top them up to that minimum that you were talking about? You're saying people who aren't making a specific amount, we'd top them up. Or if people who aren't working at all, would you give them this annual income regardless, right?
Well, it depends on why. I mean, we know that a lot of the people who are not working now are disabled. We know that a lot of the people who are not working now are people who are under the age of 25 and are trying to stay in school. At the present time, if you're a welfare recipient in Ontario and you apply and get accepted to St. Lawrence College, and then you apply for an Ontario student financial assistance, you're taken off welfare right away, when we all know that actually getting an education is the best way to guarantee one's own ability to earn one's own way over time, and it's the best way to make a real contribution to our economy. Part of our problem now as taxpayers is if you look at the prisons, you will see that over 90% of the people in prisons come from the 10% of our population who have the lowest incomes, who are living beneath the poverty line. That's a huge cost to you and me as taxpayers. We know that people who are poor and live beneath the poverty line are the first to get sick. They stay in hospital the longest. They don't live as long. They drop out of school first. These are the costs that are really a huge burden now on every taxpayer, those people, the vast majority of us who are working. So the issue is, how do you reduce those costs responsibly?
How do you encourage people to do something by making it easier for them to do nothing? And I'm wondering if you're giving up on people, because we're talking about poverty reduction here, and the best way to reduce poverty is to get an education and get a job. So don't you want to find out what the problem is, why people are poor, get them the help they need so they can work in society, as opposed to having other people top up their income?
Well, we don't do that for our senior citizens. And
seniors aren't working, though. We're talking about...
Well, no, but wait a moment. We did that because we made a decision that we did not want our seniors to live beneath the poverty line.
Mm-hmm.
Your question implies that it's okay for all kinds of people, young mothers and others, the disabled, to live beneath the poverty line. And I guess, John, you and I respectfully disagree on that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most constructive way you can invest is to get people out of poverty. And I think, by the way, if you did that, you'd want to make sure that there was a real incentive, i.e. the first $4,000 or $5,000 a year that they earned after they're being topped off would not be taxed. So they would much rather, and you wouldn't top them up at a level where they would be earning as much by being topped off as by working. You'd only top them up to a level which deals with the very basic requirements in a way that would probably be a bit more generous than the present welfare, but not really enough to live with any measure of comfort. You know, of course, that in Canada today, except in Newfoundland and Labrador, every welfare recipient gets between $11,000 to $19,000 for a family of four, less than what the poverty line is. The only place in Canada where they've had, and I point out it's a progressive conservative government that did that, the decency to bring everybody up to the low-income cutoff is Newfoundland and Labrador. But right across the country, existing levels of welfare do not bring people up to what they basically need to get by. And, of course, that contributes to some of the crime and other related problems that we see. Some parts of the country it's prostitution, some parts of the country it's drugs, and that's the sort of thing that costs us huge amounts of money. So, no, I don't want to give people money for doing nothing, but I want to give them a hand up. And we should do it in a way that doesn't involve more bureaucracy, that doesn't involve more civil service, that doesn't involve more administrative costs, but is automatic through the tax system, which is what we now do justifiably for our seniors.
You have great faith in people, and I think maybe we differ a little bit there, because I think some people would take advantage of this if they could. And I know people in this community who take advantage of our welfare system. You know, we have a lot of fraud involved in that. Are you not concerned that this might be taken advantage of, and that we would be deeper in a hole at the end?
Well, John, that's a very, very good point. You know that when you fill out your federal tax form, which is how I would do this, and you sign that signature line on the bottom of the page, if there's a fraudulent declaration, that is a far more serious crime than gaming your welfare officer. So my point is, because the federal tax system protects privacy, because the penalties for a false declaration are very high, that is a much better way to clean up the system than have the present circumstance where the vast majority of our income support workers in the welfare system have a caseload way higher than they can manage, which just makes it easier for that system to be gained.
Okay,
I think this is a better way of doing it.
I've only got about 60 seconds here. Who determines how much, and how do you stop government spending from spiraling out of control, which it always does?
Well, in the recent report that was done by Senator Eggleton, myself, and the Standing Committee on Social and Economic Affairs at the Senate, we made the case we don't want to spend one penny more than is now being spent. We want to spend the existing amount more efficiently to get better results at lower cost. That's where we're starting from. We don't want to spend any more money. Secondly, understand this. If people who were applying for this were topped up, they would no longer be eligible for welfare. that would reduce the welfare burdens in most of our provinces, and that is money that could go into tax cuts, could go into paying down the deficit, could go into early childhood education, things that we all know are important. But now, with the present welfare burdens, you're not going to get there. This would reduce the welfare burden, and the federal government, through the tax system, I think, could manage it much more easily, and of course they could reduce transfers to the provinces for welfare over time. So in net, this would be far more efficient and far more effective for the taxpayer.
Senator, it's a great discussion. I really appreciate you chatting with us about this. You make some great arguments. And,
John, it's great to hear your voice, and thank you for giving me the chance.
Well, thank you very, very much. It was nice speaking with you.
All the best.
Senator Hugh Segal on AM 1220 and Cornwall Today.
For those of you who are still here and may have listened to that whole interview I did with Senator Hugh Segal about 20 years ago on my radio program, it's hard to believe it's been 20 years. It really is. And it's funny because I interviewed thousands of people. I don't remember most of them, but I always remember that one because this issue pops up every once in a while like it is right now. What did you think of his argument? Because it's the same argument that people pushing Bill S-206 right now, including Senator Kim Pate in her 39-minute speech in the Senate back in June. It's the same thing they're saying today. And as a conservative, keep an open mind here. You may be throwing crap at your screen right now. But if this actually saved some money, helped people, ensured that they continued working while they were getting a bit of a hand up here, and it didn't disincentivize work. It's an easier way of saying you're not paying your money to allow somebody to sit at home and collect a paycheck for doing nothing. If it could do those things, would you be in favor of something like this, which they call the Guaranteed Livable Basic Income? Well, they haven't completely formed this plan yet, and you need to keep your eye on this one, folks, because it could move real fast. The way the cost of living is, a lot more people might be needing this in the future.